Hey, it's David Waters. Welcome back to Orangeville Daily Homes. Today is a special day. I am going to be sitting down with you and discussing plans to where we think Orangeville is going to be moving within the next 25 years with regards to development, different projects. And today we have a special guest, Councillor Jeremy Williams of Orangeville Council. And so let me introduce you to Jeremy here. There you go, Jeremy. Thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate that.
My pleasure to be here, David.
So basically what I wanted to go over with you is where do we think Orangeville is going to be going, moving, short-term, long-term, different projects on the go, and, maybe some of the hurdles that you can see, especially from a community in transition.
Orangeville is an interesting place. It's the only major municipality in the whole GTA that's encircled by the province's Greenbelt Plan. So our options for growth are limited. All the other municipalities in the GTA, in Newmarket, Oakville, they all have areas, gray areas, where it's not zoned for development, but they can move into those areas.
Okay.
We don't have that option. Another factor limiting our growth is wells. We're on wells, we're not on a lake. And we're right now at a holding point where we don't have any more water allocations. So before we can grow more, we have to increase our water supply. Sewage used to be an issue. We've increased the sewage plant, increased the capacity, so we're good to build beyond 30,000 people. Right now we're at about 28,000 people. Okay. So that in combination with the Places to Grow Act, which is, it makes sense. The province decided we only have so much land. We have to make the best use of it. So rather than grow urban sprawl and spread out all over the place using a valuable farmland, let's be careful. Let's use the land that we have right now, intensify it. But now that kind of is a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because we use land more efficiently. However, a small town like Orangeville, we really don't want to become a Brampton or a Mississauga where we have a 30-story building right in the downtown core. We want to maintain that small town feel. So that's the challenge that we face.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you touched on a couple of points with regards to that. Things that you don't want it to be, like another big metropolitan city. And I think a lot of people can testify to not wanting to be part of the big soup, big spaghetti down in the city, because
that's why we're here. We're not down on Bay Street.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of people want to have that sense of community, and I think Orangeville has a nice mix, a nice balance between development and commercial development and industry. Now, I'm sure that we'll talk a little bit about industry a little bit later on our overview here, but for the most part, I think a lot of people can really say that Orangeville does have a nice mix between residential and the amenities that they're looking for. Now, people can always be looking for more, but it's a start, and then moving forward, it'll be interesting to see where kind of things lead. But right now, we got a map here that I just wanted to review with you, just and help us kind of explain little areas of what's going on with regards to where it's being identified in red, and just so people can get their bearings. Over here where it says number 7, this is up where the hospital is, and this little section here, this is Highway 10.
Yeah, and the map is divided into poles. So each number is a pole. If you go to the tax office and you're looking for information on your property or whatever, that's what you refer to. So section 1 would be pole number 1, and also for elections as well. Okay.
Well, let's start with down on number 4 then. Some of the red things that are going on here. So I'll point over to this one here. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening?
Yeah, that's a piece of land that has been owned by Mr. Warts since the 60s. Their family has owned it since the 60s. They've been very careful in their development process, a little bit at a time. I'm sure many people might recall that the bypass didn't always go through. It stopped. Well, they were good enough as a family, as doing something right for the community, to donate the land and some of the construction costs associated with putting through the two roads that go through their property now.
Okay.
So they started to release it for commercial. They're almost done developing that whole piece of land. What's interesting is when they sold off and developed to the west end of town, all the homes that are there, they saved some of the parts that are closer into the center of town. And so from the people that live there, their perspective is, well, they bought this house, they're surrounded by open space and trees, and now boom, to them, all of a sudden there's this big development going in, and they fear that it's going to change their community, it's going to increase traffic, it's going to increase noise, it's going to decrease their values of their properties. So this is always the challenge that you have. So it's not technically an infill, but it has a lot of the feels as far as from a development point of view and dealing with the people in the surrounding area. So the parcel is it's zoned a particular way. It's zoned low residential.
Okay.
And anyone that owns a piece of land that's zoned a particular way has the right, it's their land, to go and ask for zoning modification. That doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Okay.
It's not an easy thing to do. You have to have a lot of good reasons. And at the end of the day, council has the final say. We have a particular vision for Orangeville. I think if you go downtown, you spoke to it a little bit earlier, it's a beautiful town. It's a small town. We want to preserve that. We want to protect that. We're not all about the great, big, huge developments. However, these people, it's their land. They can do what they want with it within reason. They've asked for a zoning change, and it would change it from low to a variety of things. So there'll be still some open space, there'll be some commercial, and then some high density. And the high density is the most controversial part of it. So perhaps, David, I think you might have a couple of images of what's planned. There's going to be 3 phases for the residential. And again, this is all dependent on if they get that zoning approval.
Exactly.
I'm not sure that it's appropriate. I'm one voice of 7 on council. So we'll have to see how that goes. I really place a high weight on the area residents and what they want to do for obvious reasons. So what we're looking at now is the yellow squares are the residential parts of it. And it's going to be done in 3 phases. So the southern part, the one at the bottom of the screen, it would be the first phase.
Okay.
And that is going to have a capacity of 54 units.
Okay.
And it will be set up kind of like a condominium style, low-rise, 3 or 4 stories, wood construction.
Okay, so for me, being a real estate agent, I understand when we talk about low-rise. Now, for people who are in the city who are thinking, what is it going to look like? Basically, if anyone that's been to Milton or certain parts of Mississauga that's been growing, one of the new trends have been these low-rise, whether they're condos or whether they're apartments or whatnot, but they are low-rise. And they are pleasantly pleasing. Like they're not. It's not trashy looking. They make it look very, very appealing. Really, really nice curb appeal. And that's what each one of these yellow residences would be. And then the commercial units you can see here would be the pink ones. And different businesses would be populated in those different spaces. But I think that's what we're kind of talking about.
Yeah, so if we're in Toronto, you call these low-rise developments, low level, low intensity. Yeah. In Orangeville, anything over 2 stories, and you start looking up, like, that's getting pretty big.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess it depends on your perspective. But naturally, the developer would want to make it the most attractive development, and they've got to sell it. People have to live there, so of course they're going to do their best. But it is the most controversial, and that's the part that maybe council may balk at a little bit getting through. There's been a lot of opposition from area residents on it.
Yeah, and I absolutely. I mean, I can understand that, especially for anyone that's being resold on a property down on this line here, being that close, thinking that's was going to be green space.
Yes.
I'm sure that would raise some alarms to them, right? Because they obviously weren't looking for something like that.
You've lived 10 years with nothing but grass and trees in your backyard.
And so that's kind of what you're expected to continue. Now, what's some of the densities that these developments would bring in with regards to residents? What are we looking at?
Well, it would be a phased thing. So you're looking at the first one being 54 units,
Okay.
next one 265 units, and then the final one is 65 units. So you're looking at about 400 units approximately. And if you do the math, if they're 2-bedroom units, you're generating a pretty good, sizable population increase. It's about 900 extra people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have to ask yourself, well, we've got Riddell Road. It was years to get that through, multi-levels of government.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we were able to accomplish it. And now if we're starting to put more driveways in there, it's slowing down the traffic. So is this really something we want? I'm not sure. The other factor is, or the other portion of the development is commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And commercial is good for us. It helps bring in taxes. But that's an argument that, you hear a lot of people, oh, council wants to develop more, it's more taxes. It's more services that we have to provide. It's more amenities. And so the taxes, yeah, sure, we get more taxes to work with, but then the demand on our services are higher. So really, it's of no advantage. I've heard that so many times, and it's just not the case.
I guess one of the things that I've heard about, especially, I mean, I've been through the report a little bit, and it talks about the need for, there's a growing segment of the market where there's only one person
Yes.
living in a home nowadays, and trying to find an apartment in Orangeville
Could be challenging.
it can be very challenging. Is that what some of their plans are for some of these units here?
Their marketing did speak to that. The older customer that's downsizing. Realistically, what you will often get is a young family moving up. They want to get their feet on the ground and then maybe move up to something else. So it's really hard to say who's going to be the final person living in that place.
Absolutely, and each one of these now, are these condos or these apartments that we're talking about, like rental units?
As I said, it's a zoning application, so they're not going to be really specific. They've said condos, but then the possibility is a condo building really a condo building, or is it a place for investors to buy condos and then rent out?
Absolutely.
And that's another conversation that the builders and the area residents have had. It's set up to be a condo. That's the idea. And what happens is it's kind of
perfect.
Who knows?
well, that's good. And and for those of you that are watching, I mean, these are the types of things that I hope that you find beneficial. Because you know what, I mean, for people who are moving, from a different area to our area, we need to make sure that the people are aware of what's going on in our community. And that's why I invited Jeremy to come over and go through some of these things. And a lot of the things that we can talk about here aren't necessarily going to be, approved right away, and it's got to go through council. It's got to go through the process, yes. Right? So it's really important to know these things. And your voice can be heard if you're not not in favor of these. Obviously,
of course,
there's opportunities for you to voice your concerns.
I've got a 1-800 number. Call me anytime. It rings right to my cell phone.
Well, there you go. Okay, so let's go back to our.
And before we move on there, David, I just wanted to mention real quick that the Spencer Avenue would then connect through.
Oh, okay.
So that's another factor as far as traffic flows and stuff.
Yeah, because I guess that takes us into a question with regards to Spencer, because Spencer is like this section right here.
It was always planned to go through.
So it's always been planned to go through, and for those of you who didn't know, I'm sure that can be hurtful in ways, especially if you've kind of bought like right at the end of Spencer there. Now, over here, what's happening over in this section here?
That section is pretty well developed. As I mentioned, this map is it's a little bit of an older map.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of developments that are either in the process. Some of them have already closed off.
Okay.
So not too much there right now. Further up the street, though, there is a development at Broadway and Beeline.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's I believe it's about 35 homes, and so it's a low residential zoning, and it was passed many years ago.
Oh, okay.
9 years ago, I think, is when it was approved. So that'll be an entrance, a small street and court that will come off of Beeline.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right by the water tower.
And then I guess I want to talk about two things about schools. because people have been asking. And just off of Spencer here, there was talk about a school going in here,
Yeah.
and then one at the top going in here.
Nothing up at the
Nothing at the
top
top?
end, but the
Okay.
first area that you pointed out.
Okay.
Yeah, there is it has been approved. The province just released, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, about $6.8 million in funding to move that along, which is fantastic. If you've got a kid that's on a bus, now it's a walking, it's
So-
much better.
So it's going to alleviate a lot of the people that are go out to East Garifraxa school out there that live in town here.
That's right.
They'll be able to walk to their own school in their own neighborhood, which will...
And another interesting factor is the property adjoins one of the town parks. And there is this new thing where the school boards can partner with the town for different things. So whether that's go together on a gym or something like that. So we're in discussions with that. There's a trail that's going to be going through there. So I've worked with our planning department to make sure that long-term needs, as far as having a trail go all along the west side of town, this fits with it. So I'm quite pleased that that's going in.
Well, that's excellent that you're able to bring that through.
I have to think long term, especially when it comes to trails.
It's always long term.
It's decades.
Again, people really need to understand. I mean, these aren't easy things to do. To connect a town, an existing town, from one end to the other with new development and trying to be able to find all those passages, it can be kind of challenging. And then you got to be able to maintain and keep the trails safe and for everybody that uses them. So, which leads me up to a couple of areas. You got the one area here, and then the other one area just off of Sea Line and Thompson there.
Okay, when you look at these maps, sometimes you look and think, oh my gosh, there's this big red area. What are they going to do there? And in that particular case, it's a rather large piece of land. It's the Pentecostal church, and it's really some minor work with their parking lot and some changes to the buildings. So that's pretty minor things that are going on there. The other one that's on Sea Line, it's not very clear on the map, but it's two different developments. So this is the one development that's ongoing, and their townhomes are going to be accessed from Thompson.
Okay.
From Thompson Road.
Yeah, I've seen those that being built, because you got the other townhomes that are here in the
That's right.
And then the Arbors is right here.
So the crosshatch area are the townhomes in question, and then the honeycombed is an area that will be developed at some point. Developers will often do that. They develop a little piece, and that generates the funds to continue their development, which is smart.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you have to keep in mind, this is Orangeville. It's not Milton. It's not Mississauga, Toronto, where you have large-scale developments and large amounts of people wanting in. There is demand for townhomes in Orangeville. There's no doubt about that. And you have to understand, the projects do take a lot longer to get through the process and finally happen, really.
Yeah.
So I guess typically what you'd find is, since they've already got their townhouses built off of Thompson, if they were to develop this eventually, depending on what it is, the access would be off of Sea Line.
Probably. Yeah, they do have that little strip, so there still could be access through, but it's probably going to be Sea Line. And just north of there, the first one that we just talked about, it's under construction. It's nearing completion.
Okay.
I know many of the, I talked to Dan. He's a great guy that's building them. And I think 3/4 of them are sold, or perhaps they may all be sold.
Yeah, they're pretty
But
much.
He's a very respected builder in town. Just a little bit north of there, adjoining, is also going to be a townhouse, I should say complex, I suppose, because there will be interior streets.
Okay.
Now that is another one of these, I hate to use the expression NIMBY, but you buy a house, you've been there 20 years in some cases, and it's nothing in the back but field. And this is a case that we have here. So Glengarry Street, there's some homes that back right onto this. And some of the neighbors...
That would be these ones over here?
Yeah, 328, 330, 332, around there.
Okay.
They were very concerned about this. We're good guys. We try to work, and most of the builders and developers are good guys too. So they've spent a lot of work with the residents, trying to change their plans, readjust where they're going to be, add some extra park buffer, and I think we've been pretty successful. in keeping everyone there happy. So along the north end part, there's going to be a green buffer.
Okay.
And then the entrance for the townhomes is going to be off Sea Line with some internal parking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's excellent.
Hasn't been finally approved yet.
But it's going through.
It looks like it'll probably
it's going
be
through all the
approved like that,
processes.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go up to the bigger red one here, because a lot of people ask me as they drive by,
What's going on?
what's in that area? How do you get to it? I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, and an interesting concern for me is the developed areas that lie east of there get sandstorms as the development's ongoing.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely a concern for people in the area. Moving forward, this is again one of these things where trails you got to plan decades in advance. So we've been working with the builder before my term and during my term, again to connect through a trail that will run through there. And so what we're looking at is the red sections are different pieces of land, even different owners, although it's all being developed more or less as one project. And there's been some changes over the years. It was going to be industrial, commercial. We need jobs in Orangeville. You know, it's a fantastic community. Far too many people have to drive just south of here to Brampton to work. So the idea was to encourage people to come set up businesses. We need industrial land for that. For whatever reason, our previous council changed things a little bit. You know, part of it was the lay of the land, a variety of reasons. They're all good reasons, but it's been changed slightly. So if you look at underneath the number 3, those are going to be, I would call them kind of medium density houses, many of them are up. There's also some townhomes going up, some row townhomes. A trail will be going through there to connect what eventually, hopefully, will be the rail trail or the other trail that runs along Broadway and connect up through to the north trail that'll run near Hanson.
Yep.
There's still going to be a commercial industrial part to it, but it's very much smaller. Right where the your cursor, where that arrow is, that's going to be some park space, some park space coming on. Another important thing to note is that Hanson is going to continue all the way through. So it's going all the way through to Veterans Way.
So this would be Hanson right here. So you can actually see kind of the process.
And if you're right about where you were there, from there to Veterans, it's already in.
Yeah.
So there's
not much more to go ahead and connect it up. And then you got the other Edgewater Valley there. They're going to be building. I don't know approximately how many homes. Because I mean, Sunvale's doing all the building as the builder down here, and I know that there's some good numbers down in that area. Yeah,
we're looking at numbers of several hundred, and this could be very long term. So whether it's in the next few years, a lot of it depends on the economy and the housing market. But certainly, it's going to be a major addition to Orangeville.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I find is a lot of people that are moving up, it's affordable right now, and it absolutely is. But one of the challenges is when there's a lack of new homes that come up on the market, it puts a real huge pressure on the current homes that's already on here. So the values start to go up because there's no other new development to kind of offset.
Yes.
And so people say, I can get a townhouse for $340,000 just off a Hanson there, but yet I can go ahead and buy a detached house for pretty much the same price. But that's an older house. So you start to see the imbalances happen when, but so in a small community, it's a challenge to keep development moving at a rate that's not kind of out of whack with everything else. So I can understand that being some of the challenges that you guys need to be able to face when you want to grow and move the town, out 20, 25 years.
And it is a challenge. If we wanted to really grow this town by leaps and bounds, we need what they call the big pipe, and that would be a pipe from Collingwood or one up from Lake Ontario.
That's right.
I don't see that happening. Alliston has one, and you can see what it's done to Alliston.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's really our water. We're on well water. We have to be careful. And some of these developments, in particular along Hanson, have what's called a holding designation. So it's like a big H when you look on the zoning plans. And that's specifically because we can't give them water allotment. So until we to get past that, that's going to be a continual problem, and we're really not set up to grow because of the green belt surrounding us. We can only grow so much.
That's
unless maybe the provincial government changes, and then maybe there's a policy shift. I don't know. I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, because I love Orangeville. It's a great town, and do we really want to? Milton's a great town. Don't get me wrong, but do we want to be another Milton? There is a Milton.
Yeah, I used
to
live.
Milton. Go to Milton.
Go
to Saga.
Look, I mean, I used to live in Milton, and I can honestly speak to the development that's happened. I have friends down there as well, and if you're watching right now and you're from Milton, you know. I mean, you have old Milton and you have new Milton, and it's grown massively, and it's because the big pipe when it went in 1999. So there's a lot happens when you get your water from Lake Ontario or any other big water source.
It solves a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many more things that you can do. But then what tends to happen is you start to kind of lose a little bit of that community feel because it starts to grow so big. So that is the balance that not just Orangeville has, but Shelburne has too. I mean, there's balance acts that in Grand Valley. I mean, all these places, they're growing, but I mean, Orangeville is the biggest one. It's the one that most people know about. So yeah, there is development. It's happening. We move at a slower rate of pace, just to keep things in check. And because you're bounded by restrictions, you can only grow so much because of certain things that are in place right now.
Right, that's true.
Okay, so up here we have. Actually, which one's this one? This one here. There's another development up there, and I know that one's been
it's going through the
sitting for a little while. I think it was
50.
I think it was 54 homes. I think, or 17 townhomes, and it was a little bit of a smaller.
It's going through the planning process, so you never want to say too much about things that are still in process.
Of course,
until they're all finalized.
But there is something kind of ongoing that eventually, when it comes to knowing what's there.
Beautiful piece of land too. It was one of the last big pieces of land in Orangeville. Now along Hanson, that's a great story. This again is where people tend to think of developers as evil people, and no, they're not. We were able to work with them. It was one of the first projects I worked with when I became councillor. They have this piece of land. It could take 10 years before it's developed. It's got a holding symbol on it. However, we had this need for a dog park.
Okay.
And I was determined to try to get this to work. So, it's not finally zoned. We kind of have an idea where the park's going to go, but not for sure. But there's this huge demand for a dog park. If you've been to the dog park, you've seen it. It's always busy. It's probably one of our most used parks in all of Orangeville, which is just fantastic. So we partnered with the developer.
Okay.
They said we could use the land. They graded it. They sodded it. And allows us access to it. So it's such a win-win situation. So the town provided the fencing, and for around $25,000, bam, we've got a dog park, which is so crazy cheap. In
the grand scheme of things, yeah, because I mean now all the people that used to go drive down into Brampton don't need to drive. I mean, you have it in your backyard now.
Yeah, and there's a section for the big dogs and a section for the little dogs. I got a big dog, right? He's shy.
Yeah.
So he has to go in the small section. But,
well, it's interesting that you say that, because when I went out and I found 365 things to do in Orangeville over 365 days, that was one of the things that I found. And I was wondering what was going on, what was happening, and then finally it's like, boom, there it is. And people were loving it. It was amazing. And even if you drive by in the middle of the day, there's mums out there with their dogs, and if it's a PD day, they're out there with their kids, and it's all the dogs, and it's about community. It's about bringing people together who and ultimately have a common interest.
Yes,
they are dogs, and what better place to grab a coffee, go out, meet new people, make new friends, especially if you're not from the community. Yes. It's just another easy way to kind of, to get in and get known in a community.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great you want to meet people? Get a dog.
Absolutely.
I remember that when I was a teenager. That was a great way to meet girls. But anyway, none of these projects are mine or this person. It's all a collaborative thing. The developer was super, super good, and council too. I can't do anything with the support of my council. and they really stepped up and helped. And I don't want anyone to think that, oh, this is my little no. We all worked together on council. It was fantastic. We got it all done.
That's what I like. I like hearing about that because again, it brings it back to a sense of community.
Yes,
Even at a council
yes.
level, you still have a sense of community.
Yeah.
People can still work with others to achieve the common good for the residents of Orangeville and people who are moving to the area. So I mean, I think that's really important. There's another thing I noticed was this up here.
Yeah, and that's kind of a neat thing because not really a lot's happening there. So it looks like all this big red area is all going to be changed around. It isn't. The property owner has applied to change some of the things on the site. They want to enlarge Walmart.
Okay.
And this puts us in a unique position because anytime they come to the town for approval, we can say, okay, we'll let you build this, but perhaps you could do something to cover where the trucks park, or hide that transformer, or provide some planting, or soften the front, or do other things. Maybe do some streetscaping.
Okay.
So our planning department and I have sat down, and they're working with the owners for Walmart to come in and just improve things a little bit. It's not that we're difficult to work with, but anytime there's an opportunity to improve things and make it a better community, it's very important to me and others in town that we maintain that small town character. So that's what's going on there. There has been some other changes, not exactly to do with that zoning that's on the map there, but we got a new Leon's.
Okay. Yep.
Which was very nice.
That's right. I remember that going in.
So that's another thing that we were able to get in.
And now you have Leon, and I just heard late last year. So you got Leon's and the Brick now owned by. Is it the Brick that owns Leon's, or is it the other way around? Yeah, it was just very interesting. So yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure which way one owns the other. I don't know.
Whoever owns one or the other, but anyways, I mean, these are businesses that see Orangeville as a good business decision in coming into a community like this. It fills a niche that didn't that existed, but it wasn't being serviced. It may have been serviced in one aspect on a higher end with a couple of other different businesses, but this is another option on the scale of things, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I have to say that I really like about Orangeville is the independent business owners, because really 50%, and I said this is right off the top of my head, like I don't even know if the facts are there, but I mean, I look at it, but I mean 50% of small businesses are what we see nowadays. I mean, we see more and more of them as opposed to these large scale. And I always find that when I did my 365 things to do in Orangeville project, I would meet with a lot of the local business owners, and they're so passionate about what they do and their business that they're offering or the service that they offer, and they really like the fact that Orangeville has that in sense of community, because the community the community supports the businesses who then again create or they put money back into the community.
Yes.
Right? And it's nice to see that, as opposed to it always like kind of disappearing when people are commuting.
And in particular in Orangeville, we have the BIA. And the BIA is just amazing at building that and fostering community spirit. They help put on a lot of the events. They always contribute to various things. And it just builds that whole atmosphere of small town business working together. And we have some exceptional stores in the downtown core.
Absolutely, we do. A lot that I like. This one may throw you off to left field, and you may not. I didn't bring it up before, but up by the hospital, right? There's this commercial development that's it's wanted to start, and then it did start, and then it kind of stopped again. And it's like that little plaza right on the corner.
Yeah, and this is where you tend to think, or at least sometimes I tend to think, we're Orangeville and nothing else really matters. Maybe that's the case for me. I'm a little bit biased, but we live in a huge world, and the various things that have been going on in the economy, they do have an effect, and part of it is financing it, or financing and difficulty in obtaining funds for some of these projects. In that particular case, that's exactly what they ran into. So it's not so much that they didn't want to proceed, but there is some financial issues there. So what happens long term? It will be a similar development, but it could take some time.
Okay, well, that's always good to know. Okay, so I guess the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I know that this one you worked really hard on making happen, and I think it's important, um, is our trail system.
Yes.
Very, very important. And but just going through this, we'll go through a few slides, and then we'll kind of break, and then we'll have another.
Okay, fantastic. So I am chair of the Trail Committee. Trailways Committee is what we call it. And it's always been a passion of mine. I like to cycle. I love to walk. And it's very important to have not just trails, but trails that connect. Trails where you can start walking and 2 hours later you're somewhere or back to where you began. The town of Orangeville has been always putting this very much in the forefront of long-term planning of what needs to be done. We have contributed substantially to the Island Lake Trail. The previous council came to an agreement where we can use the trail. So if we walk in to the trail system in the Island Lake Trails, we're allowed to do that. It doesn't cost us anything. So if you drive into the CVC, then you have to pay because you're parking and everything else. So my goal has been not to just keep going along that trail, that path. I hate to say that, but also to make sure it's a fundamental and integral part of our own trail system that we can access it. So there's a variety of trails within the town, and they're all going to be part of the larger picture. So we do have a master plan. I've also been trying to work with Caledon and other groups to enlarge the trail system so it's a complete circle of Orangeville, and that's a very long-term project. A lot of property owners, different municipalities. It's very much a long-term thing. But in the immediate short term, we do have some kind of cool new trails coming in. Where does the money come from? Anytime a developer comes to town, they have to put a percentage in parkland. Sometimes it's a small site. You can't have 5% of the lot as parkland. It would be big enough for a rhododendron and a bench. It wouldn't make sense. So instead they give us cash. So those are development charges. We have to spend them on certain things. So that money is set aside specifically. In this case, trails are one of the things we can spend the money on. So we have 3 trails that you're going to highlight here. And one of them, it connects to Casey Gardens, which has a trail right through it, going over to John Street. So this is going to kind of pick up where that ends on Bethia Street, go around the Senior Center to Center Street, which is near where the 7-Eleven is. There's going to be a new community garden there. And then the trail will continue on to Dawson. Now, this used to be what they called the rail trail, but that was a very controversial thing, and the previous council felt that it wasn't an appropriate way to go. I am a big believer in the rail trail, always have been, and I'm just thrilled that we can at least build this small segment that goes close to the railway tracks. I think it's a very safe thing. We don't have high-speed commuter trains. The rail lines don't have that, and it's certainly much safer than walking on a street where you've got transport trucks 10 feet away.
I personally think this is great. I would love to see it continue all the way through, and I think a lot of residents, or
a lot of people were upset that didn't go through.
Yeah, and I would like to see that continue all the way through because, I'm a big rollerblader. I like to go rollerblading.
So you get it,
and I get it. You know what? Because I used to live in the city. I used to always go down to the trails, go rollerblading. Here. So it's nice to see that more and more trails are happening, and we're able to do that. So I like this one specifically, which is nice.
I'm hoping that it kind of sets the stage for, nothing terrible happened. It's used. It's well received.
Absolutely.
And then proceed to continue along and extend it the way it originally was going to be.
Okay, so I'm going to show you another one here.
No, the other one, and this gets back to making the Island Trail Network accessible. This connects a short trail that goes from Woodvale Court to Maywood Park. I'd call it a parkette. It's just a very small park. There's a creek that goes along the north side of Maywood Park, and this will be to connect it with a small bridge over to an existing small trail on the Victor Large Way. But that connects through along Hanson, past Booklore, all the way around Canadian Tire, and before you know it, you're at the Home Hardware, you cross the lights, and boom, you're right into the Island Lake Trail.
Which is
so
awesome.
now there's this big part of town that can hop on the trail and go all the way to Island Lake. So again, it's this bringing this connectivity. These things are challenging. The CVC's involved. The fish hatchery is involved.
Of
and
course.
these are serious things that you have to consider, but it takes a long time. Now, this other trail, this is one of these stories.
The teenagers are going to love this for sure. You know,
the teenagers are going to more than just love it. They came to us
and said we need it.
we need this. And unknown to them, I've been pushing for this for some time. Our Mayor Rob Adams, this has been an important thing for him as well. 25 years, one councillor said.
25 years,
to get this in.
Wow.
And I was determined if I got anything done, I would get this one completed.
I know I told you it all kind of moves a little bit, slower pace here. I didn't realize 25 years, though. Wow, that's awesome.
Well, I didn't work on it for 25 years.
Not you.
I got it done a little bit quicker.
But then again, Orangeville was very different 25 years ago than what it is today. So that's great. That's fantastic that you're able to do that.
Is right now, for people that aren't familiar with the area, on this place is UGDSB property. That's ODS is over that way. It's a creek. It's a muddy bank. Students have to jump over this creek. So now it'll be a bridge, and it will also connect through, again, the connections, to the one that will go over, or does go over, to Blind Line to Amelia.
That's
so again,
right.
continuing and extending that trail. Eventually, at the west end part, it will connect to the other trail system that we talked about.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people will certainly benefit from a lot of these things. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll basically kind of wrap it up. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's David Waters, and this is Orangeville Daily Home special edition of what's going on in Orangeville. I'm here with Jeremy Williams. He's a counselor in Orangeville here, and turn the computer around so we're there. I don't know if we can see ourselves, but anyways, hopefully we're in the.
Hopefully we're there somewhere.
Hopefully we're in here somewhere.
The magic of technology.
Well, exactly. Okay, so I guess let's look at a project that is actually, I find this project very fascinating. Over in Brown's Farm. What do we call it? Brown's Farm.
Well, we've called it a variety of things. We've called it Diane Drive. It is 120 Diane Drive. We've called it Brown's Farm. We've called it the Sports Park. Council recently approved a name, so it is now officially the Lions Sport Park.
Okay, perfect.
So that's the name.
Which is on Diane.
Which happens to be on
Which
Diane
is just
Drive.
off of Broadway.
That's right.
Okay, it's easy enough. We'll go to another view in a second. But let's talk about this project because there's so many different aspects to it that I find fascinating, to be quite honest. I think I was there for doing one of my 365 videos, and I noticed, and you actually posted that out onto your Facebook page, the hockey rink that's there, the ice rink that's there, which I think is a great addition to the community. But I noticed a lot of the other things that are going on here, and so anyways, let's fill me in with a little bit of that.
It's an interesting story. It started that when Brown's Farm was developed, they needed a school, and so it was planned that would be a school. For whatever reason, other schools were built. It was found that it wasn't really required. So the school board was sitting on this big piece of land. It's about 15 acres. That's a pretty big chunk.
Yeah.
For many years. One of the community colleges did use it for a little while, the building that's on site there. But it was really just sitting there, not doing too much. So town spent a little bit of money, I think very wisely, to acquire this piece of property. And that did two things. It meant it wasn't going to be developed for high-density residential or whatever. And it meant that we would have a large chunk of land that we could use for sports. We don't have enough soccer fields in town. We have an annual, it's called Stormfront, it's a soccer tournament, and we have to go outside of our community to host it.
Wow.
Which is kind of a shame. So this was an important thing that the town felt we should do. So we bought it with the idea of having a sport park. Kind of running in a separate line was the Lions Club came to us and they said, we want to build this sports pad. What's a sports pad? It's a big concrete pad. It's got boards. It's got a fence. You can play sports on it. Floor hockey, basketball, those kinds of things, and not worry that your puck goes or your tennis ball goes flying off into the distance. They started over by Every Kids Park. I said,
Yes,
okay,
I remember that.
And
Yes.
it turned out it was just too wet. So then we were scrambling. Well, you know, they want to get this built. They wanted this wonderful thing for the town. The Lions Club and all of our community organizations have this rich history of working alongside the town. It's a bit unique for Orangeville. There's some towns where the municipality just takes over. They do the whole thing. Here it is. Get an architect. We tend to involve the community. We involve the local organizations. It helps because they raise a lot of the money. And it's a better thing when we can all work together. So we needed a place to put it. This became a logical place to put it. They were very fast putting it in. They worked overtime to get it all built, get the boards in. It was important for them to get them in the fall. However, they weren't going to do ice. They weren't going to do hockey, anything like that. And a few people talked to me in the neighborhood and said, look, Jeremy, we want ice. We want to be able to use this to play shinny and hockey and just goof around and stuff. And if the town's not going to do it, we're going to do it. And I love that kind of sense of community. So I said, well, you know what? We've got this program where the town can assist with the neighborhood rinks. And that goes for all Orangeville. If a group of neighbors want to get together and put something together, we can kind of assist them. And then, you know, the more we thought about it, we kind of looked at the budget. There's a bit of wiggle room there. And thankfully, council agreed that this is also a wise idea. We just have gone ahead and we've got the ice in this year, and then the town's providing this ice.
So here's a question for you, and
a year ahead of schedule. I love that.
A year ahead of schedule, exactly. Well, it's nice when you're able to do that. Here's my question, because this has actually been raised by a couple of people who have asked me about this. So how do you book ice time?
How do you book ice time?
Or
you put your skates on, you show up.
Or you just
That's my kind of scheduling system.
And then the second question came from a number of parents was, I have young kids and I don't want them to get hit by a puck.
Right.
How do we schedule the time to make sure that the two don't overlap? Is it first come, first serve? Is it like you get there, you have an hour to play, and then it's the next?
Right.
Or how does that work? Or is there a plan? Because I know you're a year ahead of schedule. Has that kind of come up in conversation, or how that's going to work?
Well, it's again, you get back to this community thing. We do have other ice rinks where there is a schedule for family skates and that sort of thing. It was really important to the Lions Club to not be too structured. In fact, in our contract with them, there's only a certain percentage where we can book it.
Okay.
So it's really important to keep it open.
Okay.
I have never found, anytime you've been in a pond hockey situation, where people are really, going gung-ho and the slap shots and everything like that. So, of course, it would be a concern. And so if you had a 2 or 3 year old kid and you see, 15 teenagers out there, doing the Wayne Gretzky, Ovechkin sort of thing, it could be a concern. But that's part of what happens when you kind of leave it for people to do what they want.
Like self-regulate type of thing. Right?
Self-regulate. I've never personally known it to be a problem. I've got 4 kids of my own. I've been on ice rinks where they're playing shinny, and it hasn't been an issue for me or my family.
Awesome.
But it is a concern, and then if it's that big a concern,
you could always,
then use one of the other rinks where it is scheduled and structured and all that kind of thing. But this is Canada, and if you're a young kid and you want to just put your skates on and go and have some fun,
just ask us, join in the game, and away you go.
Yeah, and the people that are out there, they're not wearing their full gear, and myself, I won't go on the ice without a helmet. Right? I only got one brain now, sorry, so I tend to be a little bit protective of it. Yeah. But I've been there many times this winter, and most people don't even have helmets. They're just because they're not shooting the puck hard. It's friendly.
It's a small community, and that's what it's about. Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of go into the details of the park, just because I got the sports pad. It's in place. Yes. You got ice on it. People probably play lacrosse or maybe even rollerblade in the summer, for sure. Or whatever. But I've noticed a number of other things that you have in here, especially up in, you got like a sitting area up here. Is that going to be like a little play area, climbers, things of that nature?
Yeah, there is an existing playground at this place, so that's already there. Whether we change it a little bit or not, it will probably be fine tuning as opposed to just ripping it all out and putting it in new. However, we have this, as I said, 15 acres. What are some of the other things we can do? So we had an open house. I was insistent that we get an open house right there on the site.
That's awesome.
And bring all the neighbors
Yep.
in, and it was extremely well attended. I think we had 70 or 80 local people come in. We brought it to the sports council. I'm chair of the sports
Yep.
council. Hey, soccer guy. Hey, football guy. Is this what you want?
Yeah.
Is this going to work? So we had those kind of conversations.
So you had to go
Had
through
online survey, lots of input,
Lots of
and
feedback.
and this is kind of the plan that we settled on. So it has 2 large soccer fields. And when I say soccer, it's lacrosse, it's football. We want to make it multi-use.
Yep.
We have a beach volleyball. Now, I don't know anything about beach volleyball. You don't want to see me in a Speedo, David, hitting a ball around. Trust me. But apparently it's a big thing, and a lot of people like that. So we put it in. We listen to what people want. And
That's awesome. I think a lot of people will like that for sure. I also noticed you got horseshoe pits in here too, which is really cool because I have a number of friends who are big with horseshoes.
Yeah.
Now here's one question though: do you have to bring your own horseshoes once it's built? Because obviously the beach volleyball isn't built, and there's other pieces that haven't been put in place. I mean, so this is like the next couple of years, or as the funds are raised, then the next things get built?
The whole thing is to be built. So what you see on the plan, that's what we want to move forward with. There's going to be some tweaking here and there. There's been a few issues with this plan that have come to our attention.
Yep.
One is there enough parking? I don't know. We may have to change that a little bit. The existing building, we're hoping that we can use it for different sports organizations to have their offices in. So storage is an issue. So there's a few little tweaks.
Well, that's interesting because I was wondering what the building was going to be used for.
Yeah,
because it's an existing building that was there when you purchased the property, and that'd be kind of interesting to be able to house everybody kind of in one place because that's like the destination. Yeah,
and it brings together different groups that can, perhaps they can have a common lobby, a common receptionist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So each group has a different day that they man the desk, sort of thing, and that makes it so much more convenient for people. You want to do a registration, make a payment, get a uniform, whatever.
All in one spot.
I envision it as the different groups being able to work together out of this one building. It was either that or tear down the building, and there really wasn't much wrong with it. So let's try to make the most of it.
keep those intact when it's already there.
Yeah, the horseshoe pits. I didn't know this, but I've learned that it gets quite competitive.
Yeah,
There's
it does.
Leagues and all this other kind of stuff. So whether they bring their own horseshoes or not, I don't know. Maybe some players have their special horseshoe.
Well, that's interesting. I guess more information will come out when these things are in place. But beach volleyball, your horseshoe pits, and then you've got now. Is there going to be lighting in any of these?
Now, lighting was one of those things that I'm not a big fan of too much light because you get light pollution. You can't see the night sky. I'm in a minority on that. Most people like lights. They like security. They like feeling safe.
Yeah.
This is a special situation. If we put lots of lights up, we're lighting up people's backyards, and we have to be very careful that this is a good fit for the community. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, one of the things that was identified wasn't a concern of too much lighting. It was they wanted lighting. So the area residents spoke to having lights.
Oh, okay.
For the sports pad / hockey in the winter, we did approve a budget to put lights in for next year, so that will be lit. And the trails, I think we're headed towards having some kind of lighting, mostly for security. It's big stadium lighting for the soccer fields. Yeah. I don't see that happening. It's very expensive. It has been a conversation that some in the soccer community have requested. Yeah. There are new lights apparently that they don't spread the light as much. It's more focused.
More focused down.
And it's only when it's being used. So we'll have to see going forward. But it's certainly something that we'll keep in mind for the plans as far as laying cables and all that kind of stuff going forward.
Well, that's awesome. I really like that. Well, I wanted to just kind of show people just where some of these projects where. Well, I'll show you this one here, which is just. I'm going to move over to Diane here. I'm just going to zoom in, and then I'll just switch over into our satellite view.
And so you see it's a large piece of land.
Absolutely.
And then the little blue thing at the bottom there, that's the building that's existing. And we've since renovated and made some accessibility improvements and things like that.
Okay, so yeah, pretty easy to get right across Broadway, right down.
And one thing I'd really love to mention about this is, if you go back to the other map, is these fitness stations.
Oh yes, that's right. That's interesting.
And I'm really excited about. I remember talking to the company that produces these about a year and a half ago. And what are these things? Well, it's just like you go to Sporting Life or one of those places where they have these fitness machines, treadmills, whatever, walkers, but it's outside. So the weather doesn't hurt them. And this is great because if you're a coach, I'm a coach, I coach soccer, and you want to do some fitness drills, you can do some practices on the field, and you go to fitness station 1, 2, 3. And they're very strong. They're described as playground for adults.
Oh,
playground equipment for adults. So they're pretty tough. They're weather resistant.
Yeah, and
so
I've seen a number of those down in Toronto. Yeah. Actually, I know Brampton's got quite a few of them set up all the way through their trail system. Their trail system is quite large down there.
Yes.
I've lived in Brampton as well, so I've seen that side of things. But yeah, I think this is great for the community. I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate this. So thanks for our talk on our sports park.
My pleasure.
Hey everyone, it's David Waters. Welcome back to Orangeville Daily Homes, another special edition that we're doing here. I'm here with Jeremy Williams, one of the counselors in Orangeville. And one of the things that we're talking about is where things can be growing, and maybe we'll talk about some the types of businesses that may be interested in coming to the area as well. Maybe medium-sized businesses, larger scale, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about, maybe setting up shop, and some things to think about before moving to the area. But, let's start off with growth, with where things can grow, and we are limited with what we can do with regards to growth with building, because we have this, the act that enables you to grow. So it's what's that act called again?
Well, there's two things. There's places to grow.
Places to grow. That's the one I was thinking about.
And the other one is the green belt.
Yeah.
So the green belt is set up to protect the valuable areas around the GTA, and so we don't just wildly develop everything. Protecting the Oak Ridges Moraine, those sorts of things, the Niagara Escarpment, which is quite important. But we also have to balance that with our own needs. We want to grow, we want to thrive as a community. Part of that is bringing employers into town. So that's one of the challenges Orangeville faces. We are surrounded by the Greenbelt. The Places to Grow Act helps as far as developing infill and intensification. So rather than a big sprawling suburban style, you've got more townhomes, you've got condo buildings, those sorts of things going on.
And I find that things get planned. There is it seems to be a lot more thought that kind of goes into it. It's just my take, my opinion, but I think there's more of that, again, comes down to community feel again, right? And so when you have a smaller community, there's more people in the community that are active in this, and there's a lot of thought that goes into different projects that get approved and ask for community input. So I guess, moving out 20, 25 years, there's only so much land that we have, but where could we get land from, and where could we possibly grow?
Well, that's
this is all
question.
This is all speculation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, first of all, we need to know one thing, that the town of Orangeville really welcomes new businesses, startup businesses, medium-sized businesses. We're very receptive to it. We have a full-time staff of economic development people that work with businesses. And I'm not just saying, hey, come to Orangeville, bring your jobs. It's working with existing businesses. So they will sit down and work with small business people, help them with their business plans, help them with connections. You need a supplier, you need this, you need whatever. Teach them business skills. So we're very much doing everything we can to encourage new businesses to come, new businesses to start up, and existing businesses to thrive and to grow. Going along that plan, the town of Orangeville has purchased some industrial land. It's fully serviceable land. It's about 6 acres in the west end of town, and we're actively marketing it. So For employers that are out there, this is a great place to do business. We're close to the GTA. We're near the 400 series highways. We're 35 minutes from the airport. This is a fantastic place. And yet we have this sense of community. One of the factors that businesses look at when they're looking for a site is who's going to work for them, all right? And once those people work for them, are they going to be happy? Well, man, this is the place to be living a good life.
Absolutely. And like I said, we've got this whole section in here, just south of Broadway through Centennial, where industrial land is, where I think the town has some land for sale,
yes,
kind of in this,
right
in this
along,
area.
Right along Centennial, we've got a nice big block. There are also some other things going on in Centennial where some of the larger factories, we're in change, we're in flux. The whole world's changing and shifting away from large industrial plants to just a different way of doing business. And recognizing that some of the larger plants that are no longer needed for what they originally set up for are being cut up and parceled off. So, businesses that are in innovation, in technology, small startups, all that kind of thing, we have the infrastructure existing. They can just walk right into town and get going.
What's interesting I find is, I see a lot of houses, I see a lot of people, and when you get into talking with them and asking them, what they do for a living, there is a huge, huge section of our population who is into the arts in one way or another, whether you're an artist or whether you work as a graphical art designer, or if you're in technology, because we have a lot of people who are programmers for gaming. There's a big section that we have. And
the creative class.
Very creative.
And it's growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I've always thought about Orangeville as a tech hub, right? As a you could set up a nice little tech village of some sort up in this area, and you do really well. You'd be able to draw people in who are looking for a lifestyle change to get out of the city and actually come to a community where it's a little bit slower paced life, but yet it gives you all the things that you want in the city at the same time.
You got the best of everything.
You do. I mean, the restaurants, we were just talking about this, the restaurants that we have in town are unbelievable. Yeah. And we actually have movie stars that actually walk down the street. I've seen Goldie Hawn once walking over to 199. Like, we're not this little small community out in the middle of nowhere. We're actually a community that's in transition in so many different ways. And we're on the map, and we're growing. And like Jeremy said, there's so many different types of businesses that could come and set up shop. I mean, we had another conversation with regards to colleges in town. We have 2 of them, right? And Jeremy, maybe you can mention a little bit about some of the colleges.
We have Georgian College and Humber College, and both are important to the town. And we have done everything we can to welcome them and to build partnerships with them. Currently, we're working with Georgian to see if we can get some culinary arts classes going at one of our banquet halls, which would be great if we do that. Humber College, too. We bought millions of dollars of property set aside at the north end of town specifically for Humber College to come and build a campus. And one thing that's really important to note is any communities that want to grow and want to thrive, it's important for them to have a close working relationship with colleges. The people come to the colleges. There are thinkers, there are future people as far as management, skilled trades, and quite often they want to settle down in the communities where they learn those trades, learn those skills, and gather their knowledge base. So it's crucial that we continue to work with Humber and Georgian to see if we can get a campus built. But there is a campus right now. Humber has their campus located. They share space at Alder Arena.
Well,
again, which shows you the close working relationship we have with both the colleges.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're set up right over here, just on the bypass.
That's right.
Here at Alder, right? Yeah. Right, the rec center. So that's where they're set up. But now you mentioned before that there's some land that you've purchased, which is pretty much right up in this section right here.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just on the north side of where the development is, because Hanson's going to be coming across down this section.
That's right.
Down here, which will connect over to Veterans Way.
That's right.
So basically up in this section here.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, sometimes higher level politics get in the mix, and the provincial government has decided, for whatever reason, to support some college developments in areas that are more favorable to their own political base.
Yeah.
So we don't have the support at Queen's Park right now for that. I've personally asked the Premier twice, and I've unsuccessfully been able to lobby for it. I've spoken to several people that are involved in this, picking the communities to have universities and education centers, and I've certainly done what I can to promote it, as our mayor and council has. But so far we're not getting anywhere. But we've done everything we can. We're going to keep moving ahead, and we do have assurances from Humber that it's only a matter of time. It's the chicken and egg thing. They need us. Their cohort, or fancy word for how many students, it has to be at a certain level before they want to move forward. And we're not there yet.
Yeah, and they're building I guess starting off at the rec center. On the upstairs level there, they have classrooms and whatever. So, so Humber is already in town. They have been for a number of years, anyways. Yeah. And then Georgian, and then Georgian is just off of, or just on Centennial there. So there is an option.
And it's I don't know if you've been to their facility.
Yeah, it is.
If you go on a tour, it was Dave Forbes, the guy that runs it, took me on a tour, and we're looking at this classroom and that classroom, and then we got to one door, and he had to knock first, make sure it was okay to come in. Open the door. It's a hospital. It's got the beds, and there's people in the gowns and everything, and it's a nurse program. So no, there's some amazing and surprising things in Orangeville for educational opportunities.
Well, that's
very important.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I just being up here, I think 7 years now. I mean, I've seen a lot of change happen and things of that nature. So we have our industrial land kind of down the center there. We've had development happen out here on the west side, which is seeing more, especially over here. We've got another 35 homes you mentioned.
That's right.
And then you also have that other development down here, which is still
up in the air.
Still in the upper air, going through processes and everything else, public consultation, all that kind of stuff. Right. So that's happening. That's this is the land over there, and then you have up in this on the northerly section some land set aside. So when things do happen. We do have a land, to build a proper infrastructure for a college. But really, when you look at it, there's only so many places that you can grow and build, right? I mean, you've already kind of built up in this section here where the hospital is, and that's kind of already being tapped. So, moving forward, where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? I mean. You got your dog park and your other development that's going to happen up here. You got Edgewater over in this section here. You got Sunvale going on with theirs.
That's right.
So you've been here 25 years, and you've been here longer. You know a lot more. You have a gut feeling as to where things possibly could go. This is speculation on our part, but really, what's your feeling where things could go?
I think Orangeville is in a unique situation. There is pressure to grow because it's frankly it's an amazing town. The natural area that surrounds it is amazing. It's close to the city. We have constraints. The constraint is we don't want to eat into the green belt, and we don't want to overstep how much water we're using, overuse how much water we're using. Having said that, there are still areas within our town's boundary that we can and are growing. More residences. More commercial, more industrial. So things are happening. Once we're filled out, and the plan is right now, we're probably looking at a maximum growth of about 40,000, assuming we can solve some of the water issues. They're not an issue now because we're being very prudent and cautious in planning.
And proactive on a lot of
very, very much making sure that we have the water supply available before we release the holding symbols for some of these development areas.
That's right.
Going forward, though, there is more industrial land just outside of the municipal boundary in Mono.
Okay.
And certainly you've seen growth in their areas along Highway 9. Okay. And then west of Dufferin Road 16, which is also called Veterans Way, is another area that's looking forward is going to be industrial / commercial.
So possibly up in this kind of quadrant. Kind
and
of
so
here.
then you get to what is Orangeville growth and what is Town of Mono growth? What is Caledon growth?
That's
and
right.
you know, really, at the end of the day, we have to work together. The water that we're using, it may be different straws, but it's the same aquifer underneath that we're drinking from. If the jobs are 1,000 feet outside of our municipality, to me, at least we're bringing the jobs to the area, and that's my main concern. I think the best kind of lifestyle is where you live and work and have fun, all in close proximity. I'm not a big believer of driving far. So whatever we can do to accomplish that. There are some other issues with our railway line, what we're doing with it. I would love to see it utilized as a GO train and perhaps even link up further to the north. We will have to do something with our rail line to make it more financially viable. Right now it's not. We're spending way too much money on taxes in Caledon, property taxes.
Yeah.
So we have a profitable railway here to service our industries, and yet we can barely afford the taxes south of us.
You know what I find you mentioned very interesting is GO Train. Wouldn't that be absolutely awesome to be able to bring GO Train in here and look at the population base that you have? Like,
Yes.
that would be fantastic to be able to bring that in.
Yes.
So for me, I mean, I look at this and I say, okay, so we've got a section up here that is possible growth. Yeah, it's just outside the boundary and whatnot, but out in Mono. So I mean, that could be a section, and who knows? Maybe you've got. I mean, I know there's some development that's going to be coming in kind of across in here, but you've got this whole section here. I think on looking at it from a west standpoint, this section here, you could kind of tie into the little estate division that you have up on the north side there. Plus, you'll have another one to the south down here. I mean, I think that may be again, me speculating. That could be a growth area, and then I guess moving out to the west end. I mean, yeah, you've got Island Lake, but then you've got this whole other project in Mono that's going in with Brookfield, and they're building in. I don't know how many homes that they've got scheduled to go in there, but maybe
a fair number.
A fair number, anyways.
Yeah, it's
because they own the land pretty much, kind of back in here, and it goes all the way back. So
That's right.
There's a big section that they can go ahead and put in there. But I mean, that's just some ideas that I.
Yeah, and I do keep in touch with some of the area councillors from Mono and other areas, and there's certainly challenges, but Orangeville itself, as I say, we've got the industrial land, both vacant and with buildings on it, and we want to attract business, that's for sure. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to work, and things look good going forward.
And here's something that, and again, I haven't even. This is just a thought that kind of just came to me. I mean, our Orangeville boundary is bounded, out here in East Gary,
the Long Beeline,
right? And I know that the farm and whatnot here, but I just when I look at it on a map and I go, where else could you see growth? I don't know. You see the roads; they all look like you've got another 35 going in there, but generally speaking, go 25, maybe even 30 years. Could you see this maybe even being built up? That's just that's just again speculation, right?
Yeah.
Could it be
as it is now?
As it is now, no. But moving forward, 35 years maybe, you never know where things can go because you look at the way all the developments are built, literally around it, and it kind of looks like it's kind of closing, and it would be a perfect spot if there needed to be growth. Is there an option to maybe work with another community, and maybe that is long term down the road? Who knows? But right now it's not. But
and it's important to know that the surrounding municipalities outside of Orangeville, they have their own plans and their own ideas, and typically they're more centered around the rural lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So they're not really looking for lots of development, whereas Orangeville is a little bit different. Obviously, we want to make sure we have the jobs and the houses and amenities that everyone wants. So we're more oriented towards growing at a controlled, sustainable rate. I'm not even going to get into the conversation of amalgamation and changing the borders of Orangeville. No. That raises a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, no, because I mean that's really, it's all speculation on a lot of people's opinions and parts, and that's not what this is about. But and again, I can say this because I'm not a politician or anything like that. But for me, if I was looking at if this was over in East Gary, if I wanted to go ahead and build, or if I had a mandate that we needed to grow by X number of people, and I needed to put something in, for me, it would make sense to actually build in an area where you actually have the services close by that you can kind of tap into.
Oh, for sure.
And then you could go ahead and do something like that, as opposed to trying to build in an area where there isn't anything. It's just
for sure,
just things like that. Try to be smart about it. Work with other communities, and that's how I could kind of see. It's like a little jigsaw puzzle, how you kind of put it all together, type of thing. Right?
An important thing to remember, though, is that with the Places to Grow Act, the province really has mandated that we try to grow within our boundaries. And right now, we're about 28,000 people. We can grow to about 40,000 people on our footprint. So without even expanding the town, we can grow by another 10,000 people. That's a 30% growth, which is huge. It's really quite huge.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
So then that brings a whole other level of challenges in that I, as a councillor, I don't want to see Orangeville grow into skyscrapers. I want to see it maintain that small town feel. So we have to be very careful going forward to make sure that we can work within the Places to Grow Act, increase density, but do it at a level that makes sense and doesn't ruin the small town charm that Orangeville has.
That's awesome. Well, Jeremy, listen, thank you very much for allowing me to sit down with you and kind of pick your brain and go through this. This is great. Hopefully,
my pleasure, David.
You're welcome. Hopefully, all of you have enjoyed our little segments here and shed some light into what's going on in Orangeville. And if you're looking at coming up to the community, you may want to check out the 365 things to do in Orangeville and Dufferin County and see what you think. Anyways, have a good one. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.